Hello, everyone, and a very warm welcome. I'm so excited to share this time with you and with our very special guest, Dr. Janey Little. At Juice Revolution, we have always believed health is one of the few things you can't buy. You have to do health, can't buy it. And the vision behind these webinars is to empower you with the insights to enable you to do your own health. And we believe that the human body is capable of attaining a constant state of optimal health. And when health challenges crop up, they are a signal that the body is at dis-ease with itself. And our job, the job that we need to do of doing health, is to create an environment within that enables the body to heal itself, because the body wants to do what it does best, which is to restore us to a state of optimal health and keep us in that constant state. So the question is often, so exactly how do I create the environment within that enables my body to heal itself from any and all challenges that do crop up? And if you are like me, if you're a member of any of the plethora of health WhatsApp groups that are out there, you will literally be inundated on a daily basis by so much information on what you should be doing to be healthy that at some point you almost feel like it's so overwhelming. My best option is just going to be to do nothing. And so when it comes to health interventions, I always look at what's going to give me the biggest bang for my buck. What is the breadth and the depth of the health intervention, and how quickly and rapidly is it going to work? And this is why I was so excited when the universe brought Dr. Janey across my path, and she taught me about the amazing liver cleanse. There's a lot of information on the internet on how to do a liver cleanse, but what is always lacking is the what and the why. And what is also very often lacking is the subtle but very critical nuances of the how. And so Janey's going to share with us tonight, the focus is on the what and the why of the liver cleanse. We're not going to get into the how. So don't worry like the entire time thinking, how am I going to do a liver cleanse? That's not tonight. Tonight is to help you to understand what is the liver, why should you care, what should you be doing about it? And then the how of the liver cleanse we will address in the coming weeks. So I'm going to hand you over to Dr. Janey. Thanks so much, Janey, for giving up your time to be with us.
Thank you, everyone, for being here tonight. It's always a great joy for me to be sharing health-related matters, and the liver cleanse is very, very dear to my heart, and I think it will soon become clear just why the liver cleanse is so dear to my heart, and what a enormous impact it can have on really just about everybody's health, regardless of where you find your health right now, whether you're already enjoying great health and you just like to keep it like that or take it up a notch. We can always do that. Or perhaps you're struggling with some niggling health issues that you really you've tried several things and still they persist. This is for you too. And if you should have had a diagnosis of a condition perhaps considered more serious, more long-standing, then this is for you too. And again, I think it will become very clear soon why the liver cleanse is the answer to such a wide range of conditions. I'll just share very briefly how I got to be doing what I do and what I love to do so much. Some of you may already know that my background is in conventional medicine, and particularly with in the veterinary field. So I was a veterinarian for 22 years. I grew up in South Africa on the Natal South Coast. I know most of you are South Africans, and I was very, very fortunate to be able to follow my dream and become a vet, and I was able to travel widely with this career. And certainly when I got into veterinary, I imagined that I would do veterinary all the days of my life. But then something very dramatic happened in my life, and that was the loss of my beloved mother. And at the time, it was wrenching in my life at every level. And it would lead to a dramatic change in my career, because although my mother and our family were given the diagnosis of breast cancer, and that was given as a cause of death, with my medical knowledge, I was led to I was inspired to dig deeper, and which was interesting in and of itself, because up to that point I would have really just taken a diagnosis such as that on face value. But I chose to dig deeper. Something inspired me to do so, and it really revealed the proverbial can of worms. In short, I came to realize that my mother never died of cancer, and that it was from the treatment. And this led me to study very deeply, or I had been deeply conditioned in conventional medicine. And, for some who might not be aware of this, but veterinary medicine is very, very similar to human medicine. The drugs are the same, the principles are the same. We have 2 legs, they have 4, but otherwise it's there are huge similarities. And so I had been very, very, very strongly conditioned in conventional medicine. And what I started to learn after my mother had passed, with all my studying and looking at many different sources, really turned my world upside down. Because what I began to learn was universes away from what I had come to believe, and I had adopted and implemented in my career for 20 years, unquestioningly. And so it really pulled the proverbial rug from under my feet. And for a few years, I really didn't know what to do next. I knew that I couldn't continue to work in conventional medicine, because I began to see it through very different eyes, and I began to see how fundamentally flawed it was. Anyway, eventually I chose to, the only option forward, if I was to work in alignment with the truth that I now came to understand, it became necessary to jump ship. And so that's what I did. And I moved from conventional medicine in veterinary to natural medicine, naturopathy in humans. And I've been doing that for the last 14 years. And what a joy it has been. And I now, my focus is on what I call achieving true health, because while I learned that the pharmaceutical drugs that I had implemented and prescribed for many, many years were certainly not the answers. They really were the proverbial band-aid on the illness, on the issue at hand. What I have seen over subsequent years in naturopathy is that there's been a leap from using pharmaceutical drugs to many who have assumed that they are following a natural path, but in doing so have leapt to using supplements in the place of pharmaceutical drugs. Now, while there's certainly many benefits of supplements over pharmaceutical drugs, still the emphasis, and I see this time and again, is it's a very quick fix solution. And I often like to use the metaphor of coming across a beautiful little country cottage, but a country cottage nonetheless that has been has been neglected in a state of complete disrepair. And, you know, we could very easily just slap a coat of paint on this country cottage and, you know, it could look really pretty again. But because it's in such a state of disrepair, very likely with the next storm, you know, it would be in a heap of, you know, sort of in a heap, and it would not be able to withstand the onslaught of the storm, of the challenges. And I liken that to what we're using with pharmaceutical drugs and supplements, is we really are just treating the symptoms, and we get short-term results at best. But it's only when we take our beautiful little country cottage and we start to build it up from the foundation upwards, and we really create that really strong foundation so that it can withstand all the storms. And, you know, all the, you know, bringing this back to the physical body, you know, whether it is infections and, you know, all the environmental challenges that we face in this modern life, when we really go back to fundamentals and treat the primary root cause, which is done all too rarely these days, across the board, then only then can we achieve true health and lasting health, health that lasts a lifetime. And I really mean this. I believe that regardless of our age, we never need to anticipate diseases as we get older, and, you know, and various forms of limitations and you know, and struggling through life. In truth, is when we go back, you know, prize everything back and go to the grassroots level, we can achieve extraordinary health at any age and regardless of our health challenges. This is the beauty. And so this is really where the liver cleanse comes in, and going back to foundation levels. So that's a little bit, creating some context as we dive into just why the liver is the go-to place in achieving this health that stems from a foundational level. And as Fiona so correctly said, you know, vibrant health is our default position. When we create, when we set things right at the foundational level, our body is in homeostasis and it just functions perfectly. And this is so much in contrast to what we hear on a daily basis. You know, there's so much media and so much negative speak, particularly in allopathic medicine, that leads people to believe that disease, you know, is inevitable. Well, you know, I really want this to be a take-home point. Disease is not inevitable as you get older. In fact, you could begin to enjoy the best health of your life going forward. So, yeah, that's please hold on to that. And when we talk about returning to foundational level of health, we are talking about restoring our inner doctor, because ultimately it is our inner doctor that heals us. You know, it's very easy to assume that a doctor heals us, or a pharmaceutical drug heals us, or a supplement heals us, or somebody outside of us. But truly, this is never the case. It is always you and your inner doctor that heals you, nothing else. There are certain things we can take, we can get guidance and so on, but ultimately it always comes down to you and your extraordinary innate wisdom that will heal you. And so and this is something we are all gifted with. But most of us have never been taught just how to tap into that extraordinary innate wisdom and to restore our inner doctor to its magnificent best. And that's what we're going to be doing tonight. So, our inner doctor, just what are we referring to when we speak about this? Now, in medical speak, it's often referred to as the immune system, and it's a very intangible term, so just what is our immune system or our inner doctor? Well, in short, every part of your incredible body plays a role in the immune system, no exception, from your red blood cells to your white blood cells to every organ of your body. And that said, the focus and the key roles is in our organs of elimination. So our gastrointestinal system is absolutely key in our ensuring our inner doctor is functioning perfectly. Our kidneys and urinary system also key role. Our lungs and our respiratory system as a whole, really key. They're constantly expelling carbon dioxide and maintaining pH levels and oxygen levels at optimal rates. So that's the third system. Our skin, the largest organ in our body. We often don't think of it as a key organ in our inner doctor, and not only does it keep us intact and control temperature and secretions, but it also excretes toxins through our skin, which is why it's such a key part of our inner doctor. And then our lymphatic system. This too is a really key part, akin to our sewage system, constantly excreting waste from our cells. So these are all key parts, and I mention these now because you'll be hearing me come back to them from time to time. By the way, I will just interrupt right now by saying that anybody can understand what we're going to be sharing tonight. You don't need to have any degrees, any physiology degrees or a DR behind your name or anything like that. The truth is that true and vibrant health is so simple, and the medical system often leaves us being led to believe that we need to, spend 7 years becoming a doctor, and that's all very complicated, and so we end up giving our health away, handing it away to the doctors and the systems outside of us, because we think that it's so complicated that we need to seek solutions outside of us. Well, the truth is, my friends, that it is way simpler than you were ever led to believe. Again, this is what we're going to be sharing tonight, and we don't need any of that medical speak. So you're safe here. Anyway, getting back to our inner doctor, those are the 5 major organ systems that I've just shared that really play a key role. But the star of the show, and you know what I'm going to say because it's the title of this talk, but the star of the show when it comes to our inner doctor is our incredible liver. Okay. It really is, it coordinates all of our organ systems. And the wonderful thing is that when we have, well, first of all, if we have health challenges, invariably, we can always trace it back to issues starting in the liver, always, virtually without exception. In contrast, when we have health challenges and we go back to this fundamental and we address our liver, then it has this beautiful domino effect on every other organ system. So wherever we might be struggling with symptoms, we will start to experience a positive result and dissolving of symptoms, because it all starts with the liver. Okay, what I'd like to do at this point is just share an image of the liver, and just to explain a few things. All right, so a very quick just run through of the anatomy, just so I want to be sure that everybody is on the same page. First of all, our gastrointestinal tract, as I'm certain you know, it starts in the mouth, which heads down. Our gut travels from the mouth down the esophagus into our stomach here, where a natural hydrochloric acid bathes the food as it arrives in the stomach. Then the food continues from the stomach into this first loop of the small intestine. And this first loop is called the duodenum. And you might want to just remember that word, because I'm going to refer often to the duodenum, that first loop there. After the duodenum, the small intestine continues. It's actually very long in humans, 9 times the length of the human body, really quite incredible. So the small intestine continues through the abdomen, and it eventually becomes the large intestine, or the colon, and then it leaves the body through the rectum and the anus. Okay, so that is the gastrointestinal tract, or sometimes I just refer to it in short as the gut. All right. Now, you will also see here in very close proximity is our liver. Okay, here's the liver, and this here is the common bile duct that runs from the liver, and notice it empties into our duodenum. Okay. There's another organ here, the pancreas, which also empties into our duodenum. All right. Now, what I want to add here at this point, or let's just talk a little bit more about this about our liver. This common bile duct here, you can see as it travels up, it heads into you see the gallbladder over there, and this is a schematic diagram. So although you see it forking into the 2 different lobes, it doesn't suddenly end there. It continues to divide and subdivide and subdivide again and again into thousands of tiny little bile ducts. Okay, and these bile ducts, in fact, are connected with every single cell of the liver. And so, working backwards the other way now, our wonderful liver, which has over 500 functions, quite incredible. And one of its key functions is in promoting digestion. And most people think first and foremost about our gut when it comes to digestion and absorption of food, but actually none of this is possible without our amazing liver. And so what happens is the liver produces bile that travels down these bile ducts. So imagine for a moment, if you use your imagination, that these bile ducts are dividing and dividing in the liver. Imagine them as like branches of a tree, which are then joining up, all the little branches, to the trunk of this tree, being the common bile duct, which is emptying into the duodenum. Okay, now here's the thing. Our amazing liver is producing 1 to 1.5 liters of bile every day that travels down and enters into our duodenum. Now, what happens is a lot of this bile is actually stored in our gallbladder. Okay, so when we are, imagine you are preparing a delicious meal, or maybe somebody has put a delicious meal in front of you, and, just looking at the food, you can almost taste it. And in that anticipation of eating, seeing the food, getting hungry, expecting what it's going to taste like, what is actually happening in your body is your gallbladder here, which is like a balloon, is contracting and is sending a bolus of bile that has been stored here down the rest of this bile has come from the liver, remember. It contracts and it sends a bolus of bile all the way down the common bile duct, down into the duodenum over here. And here's the thing. This comes down here at the same time as the food that you have just swallowed that has come down into the stomach. It's coated to some degree with the hydrochloric acid, which starts the digestive process, and then it comes further down into the duodenum, and it is coated further by bile. And this is absolutely fundamental to digestion. Without bile, none of the wonderful food you eat can be absorbed, assimilated, and utilized by the body. So now, with that said, I'm going to introduce the next really crucial takeaway in this talk is the single most significant cause of all conditions, symptoms, diseases, acute and chronic, in the body, and nearly all, without exception, can be tracked back to the existence of liver stones. And to demonstrate that, I'm going to share another diagram with you that might just be a little easier for you to envisage. All right, so as you can see, that's pretty much the same image. And now what we've seen is that biliary tree, so those bile ducts that I explained are separating, are dividing and subdividing in the liver. And what you'll see, instead of these ducts being nice and clear so that the bile can flow down that 1 to 1.5 liter we talked about, stored in the gallbladder, and then 1 to 1.5 liters all the way down to the duodenum every day. Well, now what we're dealing with is stones. Stones that are wedged all the way along these bile ducts throughout the liver, and in many cases in the gallbladder as well. So I put the question to you folks. Do you think if a liver has many liver stones wedged in all these hundreds and hundreds of bile ducts in the liver, if you had dozens or hundreds or even thousands of stones in the liver, do you think that this 1 to 1.5 liters of bile will be able to reach the duodenum? Do you think that the liver is going to be able to do this vital function if it's all clogged up with stones? Yeah, no. This is really what is happening. And this is very, very common, folks. I personally have consulted with thousands of clients over the last 14 years. The liver cleanse that I must attribute full credit to the incredible naturopath Andreas Moritz, who in fact conducted tens and tens of thousands of consultations during his life. And virtually without exception, people, particularly with niggling ongoing symptoms, chronic diseases, are showing up with liver stones again and again and again. And in fact, a very high percentage of adults, even without symptoms, have these liver stones, and at some level it's eroding the the full vibrance, the full, the full expression of vibrant health. With that said, I'm going to next go on to explaining a little bit about just how that shows up in the body and what are the consequences, so that we can really get to grips with it, and it can become very tangible and very real for us, and I don't want you to just be left with theory, but really something that you can take into your life, into your world, and apply it to your health, and and help your loved ones around you as well. Let's talk about what this is going to lead to, what the consequences are going to be. Okay, so we said here, so how's our duodenum again? We said how the food arrives here, and there's very little bile. In fact, what often happens is people who have a lot of stones, instead of having 1 to 1.5 liters of bile every day, they might have less than a cupful arriving here in the duodenum. And this is a disaster, because now this food, and it might be the best food in the world, and yet the body is simply not able to utilize it. And this is very, very relevant, because I've seen time and again with consulting with clients. Some of my clients have done amazing things before they come and see me. They've changed their diet, they've done amazing cleansing plans, etc., and still they're not seeing the results that they expected, and that, of course, that they hope for. And so, as important as as looking at diet and changing diet where it's appropriate, as important as that is, and it is important, understanding the importance of liver stones is more important. Because again, we can have a great diet, but if our liver is full of liver stones, it's going to undermine all our efforts of healing and all our dietary changes. This is where health needs to start. Okay. So what happens now is the food arrives here. There's very little bile to coat it, to break it down, to digest it, so that it can be absorbed in the circulation and travel back to the liver, where the liver then in turn processes the nutrients and converts it and distributes it around the body. Well, none of this is able to happen because of a lack of bile. And so what happens is this food just sits here, and it starts to decompose, it starts to putrefy, or for want of another word, it starts to rot in our intestine, in our duodenum. And this not only is a disaster in terms of not able to absorb nutrients, but now this rotting food is a source of toxins in the body. And it starts to, if we don't realize what's happening and we don't do a liver cleanse, it starts to build up more and more in the duodenum. And it starts to create congestion there. So by congestion, we mean, it gets blocked up to a degree. It gets quite impacted. And this causes a whole host of symptoms. So in the initial stages, people might present with bloating after food. Why? It makes sense. The food arrives there, a lot of gas is formed, it's not able to be absorbed, and so there's bloating, particularly after meals. Very, very common, early symptom. Or it might be associated with burping, with flatulence. What often happens is the food then refluxes. There's a lot of bile and food, and there's this toxic food matter, which then refluxes into the stomach. It should be absorbed, and the waste should be passed through the intestine out of the body, but instead it's going the wrong way. It's going back into the stomach, and it can even go back into the lower part of this esophagus. And that is when people complain of heartburn. I'm sure you've all heard of heartburn. Perhaps some of you have even experienced it. And the reason is when that acid goes up into the esophagus is not designed for the acid and the food content to go back up, and really burns, and that's the heartburn. Now, unfortunately, most people are then just given over-the-counter antacids, and this is really just putting a band-aid on the situation. It's not a solution at all, because if the liver stones persist, the acid reflux will continue. And we see this, some people end up being on antacid pills, getting stronger and stronger and stronger for years. Some people end up staying on it for life even. So that is one example of how it can show up. In addition, with the bile that now is refluxing into the stomach, it's upsetting the whole pH in the stomach, because the stomach is supposed to be an acid environment. Remember, we said there was natural hydrochloric acid secreted there. Well, bile is alkaline, and if it starts to reflux back into the stomach because there's so much rotting food there that is causing a reflux, a blockage, well, then it's going to completely change our pH here. And what happens then is we find that the stomach lining is not able to produce its normal mucus. There's this, in the body's extraordinary wisdom, it produces a mucus lining that protects the stomach from acid, and it keeps the stomach, in complete harmony. Well, now that doesn't happen. And so what happens now is the acid starts to have an impact directly on the stomach wall, and this causes a great deal of pain. And this is when we get what we call gastritis. Okay, so again, it's really just the term for an inflammation of the stomach wall. And again, we have to go back to foundation, simply not just take an antacid. We have to say, why is this happening? Okay, it's the liver stones. We need to address the liver stones. So these are some of the very common symptoms, and sometimes these symptoms can also, some folks start to feel the reflux at the base of their throat, almost like a sour taste. Because this bile is traveling up from the stomach into the esophagus, and they can start to taste a sour taste in their mouth. It can also lead to problems higher up from the esophagus. It can cause problems in the mouth, such as sensitive gums, gums that bleed very easily. The dental issues. Most dental issues are due to liver stones. And it can lead to bad breath, and again, all of these symptoms are usually just, people take have chewing gum or something like that to take away bad breath, but it will persist, of course, and it will probably get worse if they don't treat the cause. Always, always, always we want to treat the cause. Okay, so that is consequence number one, is the food is not, because of all this, the lack of bile, secondary to the liver stones, food is building up there, it's fermenting, it's putrefying, it's rotting, and so the food we're eating, no matter how good it is, we're not benefiting from it, and it's a level of malnutrition. It seems incredible to say that when, people might be, spending a lot of money on food, and not talking about third world countries here, we're talking about everyday people who are in a state of malnutrition. They're eating well, but their body is not receiving the nutrition. Okay, this is really key. So that's number one, a lack of nutrient absorption. Really, really important, of course. Consequence number two of these liver stones is this build up of toxic rotting food in the intestine is going to attract parasites, and it attracts worms, it attracts bacteria, it attracts protozoa, it attracts viruses, liver flukes, etc. And they are drawn to this area to break down the food. Now, here's another key takeaway. These guys are not the bad guys. In fact, they are drawn to this area to play a crucial role. If that food continues to build up there, can form in a short period of time a complete obstruction, and that would be a medical crisis. If your gut is blocked completely, that is an emergency. It's a crisis situation. So they are drawn to that area to break it down. And so, very often, again, in conventional medicine, they pick up that there's worms there by doing a stool sample, or pick up that there's bacteria, and people are handed antibiotics. They're handed dewormers. This is not the answer, folks. And I think you can begin to see that this can make the situation worse, because now we're actually getting in the way of nature's response to try and resolve a situation that is out of hand. Now, at the same time, we're not saying that we want the worms there. We would prefer a body clear of parasites. Of course we would, because they produce their own toxins. So we do want to clear the parasites. But the way to do it is to say, why are the parasites here? Why are they drawn to the gut? They're drawn there because there is congestion there. There is rotting food there. And the rotting food is there because of the liver stones. And when we address that and we clear the liver stones, and at the same time we clear the impaction in the gut, so we're clearing our gut alongside clearing our liver, well, soon we have a clean intestine. And guess what, folks? The worms are out of there. They have no interest in a clean body, without taking dewormers, which are toxic in and of themselves very often. So, they can actually add to the problem and make more work for the liver. So again, this is not the solution. And I always like to remind folks that, everything in our extraordinary world has profound wisdom. Even the worms, even the bacteria, all the microbes, everything is designed with perfection. And in truth, there is this extraordinary, wise synergy, this wise symbiosis that is happening in the body. So we never need to worry about the worms and the microbes. Our only focus is on keeping our body clean, and if it is impacted and if there's stones, we clear that. And when we do that, well, the rest will take care of itself. The worms and the parasites will leave the body, and they will no longer be interested in your beautiful new cleansed body. Okay, so that's consequence number 2, parasites are attracted. Consequence number 3 is something called auto-intoxication. Now, auto-intoxication, the word kind of explains itself. It is like an auto-poisoning. And this is probably becoming very clear now why that would be, because of all these toxins from the rotting food in the duodenum. Well, a lot of toxins are being created from that. And eventually, as it builds up in the gut, they've got nowhere else to go, and it begins to penetrate enter into the circulation in that area of the intestine, and travels back to the liver and can travel all the way around the body. And so these toxins that would never normally leave the gut now are traveling throughout the circulation and potentially affecting any organ system in the body. So it could affect the brain and cause symptoms related with the brain. It could affect the heart and the cardiovascular system. It could affect the reproductive system. It could affect the kidneys. And in truth, it's all, while it might seem like an entirely different organ system, we can always trace it back to the liver stones. Okay, so this auto-intoxication, it means that the blood, which is our life source, is now no longer pure. It's no longer just carrying an abundance of nutrients and oxygen to our cells and tissues around our body. It's also becoming increasingly more saturated with toxins. And this is adding a huge workload on the liver. So now our poor liver that already had liver stones is under increasingly greater demand, which is why often people's health, when it starts to deteriorate, it often spirals into worse and worse and worse. And I think you can see why this would be, because the liver is now under increasingly greater demand from the challenges placed on it. And now the blood, which is our life source, is carrying toxins around the body and causing damage to other organ systems. So yeah, this is the consequence of auto intoxication, and it is really can explain most disease conditions. Consequence number 4 is something that we call a lazy gut. Now, going back once again to the fermenting, decomposing food in the gut. This is broken down to some degree by the worms, but not completely, particularly if the food continues to come, and we're eating often 3 times a day, so it's an ongoing process. The stones are not being cleared, and so this rotting food stays there, and it begins to dry out and become very rubbery, in fact. And this we call this mucoid plaque. It's really foul stuff. When it is released from the intestine, it smells really bad. It can spend years or even decades in some people's intestines, and they have no idea it's in their gut until they clear it. And as you can imagine, it's a source of a load of toxins. It attracts the parasites, as we've already said. But in addition to that, because it's now drying out, it's inhibiting the natural movement of the gut. The gut moves by peristalsis. That's how it clears the waste out of the gut. But now, because it's got this very dry, inflexible, rubbery material inside, it's in the lumen inside the gut, it's preventing its natural movements, and so the gut becomes unable to expel the waste. And this is another level of consequence for the body, because now not only is it not able to absorb nutrients, but it also can't expel the waste. So now the level of toxicity in the body is rising and rising, and so this is why we call it lazy gut. The gut is not able to contract and expel the waste. It's not lazy at all. It's trying to do its best, but it's impeded by this shackling effect of this rubbery mucoid plaque in the gut. And some folk show up with constipation as a result of this, or certainly less. Their bowel movements are less frequent than they should be, because their gut is now no longer as active as it should be. That's consequence number 4. Consequence number 5 is something that we refer to as a leaky gut. Now, this is a term that I'm sure many of you have heard, and if you give me a moment, I'm just going to bring up an image for you to help to explain this a little bit. All right, so just to explain this pic a little bit, this is the lumen of the intestine. When I say lumen, that's the inside, so that is the place where the food has, is rotting, and where the waste after of the food is passed out. So here you'll see, pictures, there's bugs, there's toxins, etc. Now, here's the key thing is healthy cells here on the left have what we call tight junctions. You can see there's no way that these toxins can pass through. Now, a healthy gut always has tight junctions between the cells, and it's designed that way because we need this barrier between the gut and all the waste. That's always going to be a dirty environment in the gut because its job is to expel waste. Well, we want a very good barrier between the lumen here and here, which is our bloodstream. We cannot allow toxins and bugs to enter straight into the circulation. This is a disaster for the body. And so this is how the body does it in its great wisdom is it has these really tight junctions that do not allow the waste and toxins to pass through. However, going back to this toxic waste that we keep talking about and the mucoid plaque, etc., when it's sitting in the intestine for a length of time, it's causing damage to these cells that are lining the intestine, and it leads to inflammation. And this inflammation means that these healthy tight junctions on the left, they begin to open up, and we get these very open channels or porous tight junctions. And this is what leaky gut looks like at a cellular level. And now these toxins can enter straight from the gut, straight into the circulation. And this causes all manner of symptoms. In the milder stages, it can cause symptoms such as allergies, such as gluten intolerance. When I was growing up, we didn't hear about gluten intolerance. It wasn't even a term. Now, the truth is that the incidence of gluten intolerance is approaching 1 in 3 people. It's pretty much a pandemic because so many people struggle with this. And so, why was it so uncommon? Way back when I was growing up, as opposed to now? Well, because our lifestyles have changed and because we are exposed to many, many more challenges in our environment, with our diet, etc. And so many more people are struggling with liver stones. And this is all leading to leaky gut. Now, I said in the early stages, it can lead to allergies, it can lead to gluten intolerances, and similar hypersensitivities. However, for some people, it ends up far more serious, and it ends up as autoimmune diseases. Now, I'm sure you've heard of autoimmune diseases. Many people struggle with autoimmune diseases, and there's a lot of misinformation and misunderstanding around autoimmune diseases. So I just want to say a quick word about that. Very often autoimmune diseases are, again, in allopathic medicine, it's assumed that the body is attacking itself, that the body has turned against itself. But my friends, know that your amazing body would never turn on itself. Such is the extraordinary wisdom of your body. You are hardwired to thrive, and your body would not attack you. This is a misunderstanding of autoimmunity. What is actually happening is toxins are entering straight into the circulation. The body needs to do something dramatic to try and save, and try and prevent further damage. And so there is a massive inflammatory response, and that presents as symptoms of pain and symptoms of disease, depending on where that inflammation happens. Now, that inflammation, that reaction can happen in any organ of the body potentially. So it could happen in the gut, and it can present as something such as inflammatory bowel disease, IBD, very common these days. It can present as something such as Crohn's disease, again, very common. And there are many others, diseases, just autoimmune diseases, just related to the gut. It could happen in the kidneys, autoimmune kidney diseases. It could happen in the thyroid, Hashimoto's disease and Graves'. This is how it happens. It starts in the gut. Many other diseases as well in the thyroid. It can happen in the brain, and certain types of encephalitis can happen due to this leaky gut. This autoimmune reaction can happen anywhere in the body, and it might seem very distant from the gut. It might, on first appearances, seem unrelated to the gut, but autoimmune diseases can always be traced back to leaky gut. Unfortunately, in conventional medicine, what is normally the response is to assume that the body is attacking itself, and therefore to suppress the immune system. And so these folk are given cortisones and very potent immune suppressive drugs. And this is really a great tragedy, because in fact, our immune system, as we mentioned earlier, is our greatest friend in healing. Our inner doctor is the reason why we enjoy great health, and we always want to support it. We always want to promote it. And the last thing in the world we want to do is suppress it. But as I said earlier, it's so misunderstood in many circles that instead of supporting it, instead of treating the leaky gut, instead of treating the liver stones, these folk are put on these potent immunosuppressive drugs. And sadly, their condition gets worse and worse, because the liver stones are not addressed, and their immune system is getting weaker and weaker from these drugs. But I want to add that the really good news is that although folk are said that autoimmune diseases cannot, there's no cure, we're still waiting for a cure, you've just got to be managed on drugs for life. Well, I think you can see from all that we've shared here, that if you go back to the fundamentals and you clear the gut out so that this waste and the mucoid plaque can be passed, and you clear out the liver and the liver stones, and once your body is clear through these protocols, then your amazing body that can truly heal from anything, if you respond in alignment to what's happening in your body. Well, guess what? These leaky gut, these porous junctions, they can tighten up, they can close up, and the leaky gut can be healed. And with that, all the symptoms of the autoimmune diseases, the hypersensitivities, the allergies, etc., can disappear, because we understood what was happening and we treated the cause. Okay, so that's the really good news. The good news is that most diseases that we told are, just take drugs for life, you just got to manage it, you just got to put up with it, there's no treatment. Well, virtually with almost no exception, your amazing body can respond and can heal from anything, even advanced stage diseases. That's how amazing you are. But we need to go back to fundamentals. We need to treat the cause, and that's when we can see truly amazing responses. That is the big why we go back to the liver cleanse, why the liver cleanse is the answer to virtually all disease conditions. And together with Fiona, we want to share with you just how you can do this. Every cleanse that you do, you will experience a big shift in the level of your health, your vibrancy, your energy levels, dissolving of symptoms, etc. Some people have had disease for many years, maybe decades, maybe they have hundreds, even thousands of stones. And so for many folk, they need to do several liver cleanses, and we do that once a month until you have a clear liver cleanse. And you know, this is such a joy to share, because it truly is taking your power back. You know, this is you truly being a being the author of your own healing journey. You know, you can really take your power back and restore your own health without shipping it out to the industries outside of you, which, as we said earlier, are often symptom-based responses as opposed to cause-based responses, where we go back to root causes and address it there. So and that's it from me, folks. Yeah.
Can I ask you, don't you want to just show everybody that image of the actual liver stones? And then also just touch on the gallstones and what's the allopathic normal response when someone's got gall.
Yeah. Okay. So I think what I might do is just go back to one of the images. Now, many people have heard of gallbladder stones or kidney stones. These are far more commonly heard terms than liver stones. We like to use the word liver stones because it's the truest word, really, because they start in the liver. But here's the thing, and this is really important. Thanks for the question, Fiona, because many people, and I've seen this time and again, when they start to have you know, health issues, they go for tests, and they have a blood test, and they have a whole range of blood tests, and some of those blood tests refer to the liver, and the liver comes back as completely fine, completely clear. And yet those same people have a liver full of stones. You know, what is going on? Well, those blood tests are very, very poor indicators of liver stones. And there's a reason for that, because they're testing the enzymes inside the cells. They're not testing what's going on in the bile ducts. Okay, so blood tests are a very poor indication, and many people are told, don't worry about your liver, simply based on the blood tests. Secondly, the next step for many people is to go for x-rays. Now, here's the thing. When people have x-rays, the x-rays do not pick up the liver stones in the liver. Okay. They do, however, pick up the stones in the gallbladder stones. The reason for this is, in the gallbladder, these stones mix with the salt in the gallbladder, and they become what we call radio opaque, which just means that we can see them on x-ray. And it's because they mix with the salt, and it is the salt that becomes that makes them calcified and makes them visible on x-rays. And so what is a very common response is doctors say, oh, you know, we found that you have gallbladder stones, and so what we need to do is cut out your gallbladder. And this is exactly what they do. They cut out the gallbladder at this level where it enters into the common bile duct, and people are told, don't worry, you don't need a gallbladder. Folks, there are no mistakes in the you know, in our amazing God-given bodies. You know, there's nothing superfluous. our gallbladder is an incredibly important organ. We said earlier how it contracted like a balloon every time we're sitting down to eat a meal. Well, somebody who's had their gallbladder removed, first of all, they've not treated the cause. The stones never started there. They started in the liver. And, it's not until we remove the stones in the liver that we get real results. But now, worse than that, these poor folk are left without a gallbladder, and so the every time they, just on a constant basis, whether they're eating or not, the bile from the liver is literally dripping down this common bile duct and entering into the duodenum. It's like a dripping tap. It's very ineffective. It's a small amount, constantly dripping. We need way more than that to digest food. We need a whole bolus of bile to enter into the duodenum when we eat. And so now these people who already had a digestive issue because they had liver stones, now they've got a major digestive issue for life because their gallbladder was removed. It's an op called a cholecystectomy. It's an op that some surgeons carry out all day long. It's very, very, very common, and it leads to more and more problems down the line. There are ways around it. So if anybody who's listening has had a gallbladder, their gallbladder removed, please fear not. There's ways around it, but you need to know about them and you need to address it, because otherwise, your health could deteriorate, could struggle without the bile to digest your food. In fact, it's not just could, it will be struggling. You absolutely need a gallbladder. So that's another problem with this whole issue of gallstones in the liver and how it's addressed in conventional medicine. The next, just completing with regards to tests, is if people then go for ultrasound, that you do see a whiteness in the liver. It's noticed as a whiteness, but it's not actually seen as individual stones, and so again, it's not addressed. If you go for an MRI, now not everybody's going for an MRI, they're expensive. You can actually see the liver stones on an MRI. Unfortunately, conventional medicine is not educated in that way. Doctors are not educated to address liver stones, to do liver cleanses. And so, if you're not taught about something, if you're not looking for it, you don't find it. And so it's overlooked, it's not addressed time and time again. And, I want to just share a quote with you at this point, which was given to me by Andreas Moritz. This is what he said about liver stones. The failure to recognize and accept the incidence of gallstones, liver stones, the formation of these stones in the liver as an extremely common phenomenon may very well be the most unfortunate oversight that has ever been made in the field of medicine, both orthodox and complementary. Okay, so powerful words, and once we know about it, we can begin to change that. Before I show this picture, I just want to share that liver stones can show up in many different shapes and sizes. This is, I have many images of stones from many clients over the years. So I'm just going to show you 2 or 3 images as some idea, but they do change from person to person and from cleanse to cleanse. So there we go. That's a whole, those were stones released from one cleanse. You can see, according to the size there, some really small ones, some much larger. By the time we pass them, because of the very particular process that we follow, it's so safe, it's so easily passed. These stones that were very hard in the liver are completely soft and are easily passed and with, you know, with great ease and comfort. So do not worry if you have you know, large stones to pass. The process that we follow, and we follow it very, very carefully, allows you to pass, you know, however many stones you have, and however large they might be. All right, I'm going to find another one for you.
Just to confirm, it might be obvious, but just in case it's not, when you pass them out, you're passing them out when you go to the loo, whilst you're on the liver.
That's right. Yes.
There's no pain involved at all.
No. Yeah, liver stones can be anything from the size of a matchstick, or even tiny, like really little, sand, you know, almost like sand particles, very, very tiny. They can be like that picture. They can be the size of peas or marbles. They can even be the size of an egg. Okay. But again, fear not, they can be passed very, you know, with great ease when you follow the protocol. Okay, I'm just going to find another image for you just to show you that they can look quite, have different appearance as well.
And whilst Janey's looking, I just want to share with you guys as well. I spoke to a lady who had chemo, and then she came across the liver cleanse, and she started to do them, and she did 12 liver cleanses in a row before she had a clear liver cleanse, meaning there were no liver stones being passed. And she said she could actually smell the chemicals coming out of her body when she was doing those cleanses.
Yeah, exactly right. And there's a range of different stones, different sizes, different colors. Sometimes the stones are passed, these ones that are green, very high in cholesterol. Sometimes the stones can actually be quite white. And when they are white, this is a sign that they are calcified and have come from the gallbladder. Okay. All right. Okay, so, all right, so I've got a question here I'm seeing in the chat. If a DNA test shows a deletion of the GSTM1 enzyme, will a liver cleansing address this? Almost certainly yes, Odette. You know, many of these tests come up with show enzyme deficiencies, show abnormalities with genes, etc. And people are left believing that it's just a defect in their body and that's it. And, you know, they're always going to struggle with whatever they're struggling with. But actually, these enzyme defects, gene defects, etc., happen secondary to a struggling liver. And when we address that, then you know, these abnormalities rectify themselves because the body knows how to rectify when we allow it to function as it should do. So yes, that can absolutely be reversed. Another question: what is the difference between gallstones and sludge? Gall sludge, they're pretty much the same. The gallstones can come in all shapes and sizes, as you've already seen, and depending on what the stage is in the liver and how long they've been there will determine if it's tiny particles, if it's sludge, or if it has had time to accumulate into larger stones. So yes, it's a factor of time. And also what the components of the gallstones are. Sometimes it's purely predominantly cholesterol and elements from bile. Sometimes there are minerals in it. So the gall sludge is usually in the early stages before gallstones have developed, or during the process, what we take during the 7-day cleanse can break down some of the gallstones to the extent that when they finally pass out, it is purely in the form of sludge. So that is another reason for gall sludge. Hope that explains that. Okay, Reich says, my sister did several liver cleanses and still had her gallbladder removed because it was so full and inflamed. I've done it twice, but now start to think that the combination of the oil and the grapefruit juice, I think it was, actually causes the stones to form in the digestive tract. Very unsure about it. Okay, some people need many, many liver stones to clear, and sometimes people stop too soon. I've had people, some clients with cancer, and even advanced cancer that have needed up to 18 months of liver cleanses. That's extreme. That's way more than the average, but it can require many liver cleanses. And the crucial thing is we do not want to stop the liver cleanses until there have been 2 clear liver cleanses. In other words, no stones have passed on 2 consecutive cleanses. And that's really important that you don't stop before. And when people, sort of say that that the gallbladder was still full, there was still more work to be done. If you follow the process and you keep doing the liver cleanses, it will clear the gallbladder, it will clear the liver, but it can take time with some folk, and we really need to just complete on the process until it is finished. You started to think that the grapefruit juice actually causes the olive oil, and the grapefruit juice causes the stones. This is definitely not the case. There are people out there that have a vested interest in stating negative things against the liver cleanse, and in conventional medicine, there is a vested interest in what they're promoting. I'm not going to talk too much to that, but suffice to say is a lot of misinformation is put out there, and including saying that the oil, that the liver stones are just congealed olive oil. This is completely false, and I can speak to that on many levels. First of all, it's actually impossible, even with laboratory and chemical processing with olive oil, to change it into something as solid as a liver stone. And certainly it wouldn't be possible in the short period of time that between taking the olive oil and passing the stone. So it's not possible at that level. Many people who take olive oil and have cleared their liver pass nothing at all. So why are they not creating olive oil stones if that is the cause? Well, it's not caused by the olive oil. It also doesn't speak to explain why there's always the same amount of oil taken, but some person who has no stones will produce will release no stones, and others might release dozens or hundreds or thousands. It cannot be down to the oil, because the difference in the amount passed just it just simply doesn't add up. And then and I could go on and on and on refuting this argument, because I've seen it time and again, but I'll just leave you with one more, and that is that why then to thousands, hundreds of thousands, of people, why do they heal from chronic diseases when everything else has failed? Explain that. So, I please do not be dissuaded by often intentional disinformation. The grapefruit juice cannot cause these stones, nor can the oil.
I think what often happens, Janey, if I could just quickly jump in, is like in the past, my husband had done liver cleanses before we met Dr. Janey, but he wasn't doing it properly, because you follow a protocol you find on the internet, and it's often explained as a 1-day process, and it's actually not. It's a 7-day process. And what you don't often find is the explanation of why you need to. You think, it's a one-off thing. I've done a liver cleanse. It's bandied about the term. But in fact, you need to do one this month and next month and next month and next month until you have the 2 clear liver cleanses. And that for me was so fundamental. And when Janey explained this to Hugo and I, so Hugo co-founded Juice Revolution with me, we were absolutely blown away with this explanation. And I said to her, I cannot believe that this is not out there. People don't know about it. They don't talk about it, but it makes sense that the amount of money that is made from disease, or why would you want to make this so easily available? Because then you would be able to sort out a lot of the disease issues. And I said to Janey, we need to share this with our followers. It's not something you don't need to go and get some weird concoction that you've got to import from overseas in order to do the liver cleanse. Anyone can do it in the comfort of their own home. It certainly requires a deal of commitment. So that's why I say you need to do health, because this liver cleanse is something that you really need to do. But once you get this explanation, it gives you the commitment to say, well, why would I not do this? Yeah, I am so grateful that Janey that you're prepared to offer up your time and share this information with us. It's really just the way you explain it. It's so simple and it's so logical and it makes so much sense. And many blessings to you over in France.
Thank you, Fiona. Thank you for everybody sharing all the beautiful messages here in the chat. I'm deeply touched by them. And and honestly, I just want to salute all of you for giving up your evening tonight and being really serious about going to the heart of achieving what I like to call true and lasting health.